Welcome to a new episode of Celestial Curiosities. My name is Maggie, and Meli and I are coming in hot with a brand new episode of our series, Celestial Essentials. We are building on the foundations of astrology, one little segment at a time. Today's topic is the signs. This is a really important part of astrology, and I'm so excited. It's going to be a great episode. By the end of this series, whether you join us in the class or you just listen here on the podcast, you're sure to increase your astro lingo confidence, your understanding, and your astrological know-how. Tell us a little bit more, Meli.
Maggie, what's your sign?
I'm a Scorpio.
What does that mean? Are you Scorpio? Is that like your sun or your moon, or what does that mean?
Well, I have the sun and Pluto in Scorpio.
Oh, okay. So many
Mm-hmm.
planets. We all have those. Well, if you've been
Yes.
following along so far, you already know these things. But it is time to get into the most basic of the things when we think of astrology, people think of the zodiac signs. And so it's going to be fun to get into that today. But before that, let's get a little more succinct on what Celestial Essentials is. I've gotten a couple questions this week about, oh my gosh, because at this point when we're recording this, we actually have only dropped the first of all these episodes. And so I've had, well, what's the difference between taking the course or just listening? And the reality, well, happy to say it, there's a ton of value in these 8 episodes, whether you join us in our live class series or not. And we love giving value. The feedback that we received from our first 50 episodes, which are that living library that dive into each and every single sign, planet, everything, was amazing. We've had people tell us that they've gleaned more from those 50 episodes than they have from courses that they've paid for that have taken them months to complete. So we are very proud of that. We know what we're doing and how we're teaching is working. And we wanted to bring more structure to it and do it in a live capacity because Maggie and I really love to be in a live capacity with people and just connecting, answering questions. And that's also how we've gotten to the point that we are, is learning in actual practice. So that is a major piece of why we're doing this. So what is the difference between listening or watching? Because really you should be watching, since there's a lot of looking, a lot of visuals that are important. What is the difference between just doing that with these first 8 episodes of season 3 or coming on to our 9-week class? Well, if you're going to listen and or hopefully watch and just do it yourself, you can take a shit ton of notes. You can, I don't know, go ask AI some questions. You can fumble around in Luna or a free software and figure it out. And that is fine. There are books you can read, etc. A lot of figure it out yourself. And a lot of people are self-paced and want to do that. So that's totally fine. If you come in and do our 9-week course, you are going to watch all of these episodes anyway as the lecture portion of the class. And then each week we are going to meet, and Maggie and I have a full set of activities, practices, a companion workbook that's designed by us, supplementary study materials designed by us, all to support your learning process intelligently the way that we've built this course. It's going to include a 1-year membership to Luna Astrology. So you're going to be able to not only during the class get proficient in using the software, but then you'll have it for your use for an entire year from the start of the course. And did I mention live classes with us? Hello, are we not just a hoot? So come hang out with us and other like-minded folks who want to get to know themselves better and their loved ones and their coworkers or whatever it is, and practice the psychology of this, practice the connectedness of this ancient wisdom with other people. And then you get to just ask us questions and we will, to the best of our ability, answer those questions. Not only that, we'll be offering you supplemental recommendations on the books that have been most helpful for us, what's gotten us to where we are. And yeah, you'll just have access to us through those classes, as well as we'll have a Telegram community where we're all connected and organized as we move through the course. So I don't know. It sounds kind of fun and valuable to me. Just call me biased.
I get a lot of people that say that they feel like they're hanging out with like girlfriends while they're listening to the podcast. And so this will be a way for us to actually get to hang out. It will be so fun. We'll get to chat. I'll get to hear your insights. You'll get to hear mine. It'll just be so much fun. And I think really productive at the same time, which my Venus and Capricorn loves.
My Capricorn stuff too. My Saturn and Capricorn loves that. And no, truly, I was actually talking about that yesterday with somebody, the passion part of this, that this started as a passion project, and that feedback that we get, it's accurate because we really were just three friends sitting in a room talking with the camera on and recording. We would have been talking about that stuff anyway. We just added a little bit more structure to it. But this is also such a fun, when we realized our Sagittarius risings and our air moons. And as we get into the zodiac signs today, you'll learn a bit more about that. We are innately teachers and disseminators of information. So this is us utilizing our innate gifts to spread the word, to spread the good word, my people. So please come hang out with us. We would absolutely love to have you guys. All of the details starting next week. We will share no more of this vagueness, the specifics, yes. And you're going to know dates, you're going to know costs, you're going to know how to sign up. For now, though, drop into the show notes, click on that wait list, get your email on there. Yes, if you're already on our email list, you do want to still add yourself here so we know you're specifically interested in Celestial Essentials. And that's all I have to say about that. But before I get started on the zodiac signs, Magalicious, who is our sponsor, whom we love so much.
Oh my gosh, we are so proud to be sponsored by Luna. Luna Astrology is the software that we use and love in our practices and our lives here on the podcast. You've hopefully seen it by now. It is visually stunning as well as highly, highly functional. And as Meli has already mentioned, part of this training is going to be learning to use the software, which is going to be very helpful. We've been making tutorial videos for Luna. And there's so many features that I just would have never, ever, ever known about. So we're the people to help you out, and we are so excited to do so. So thank you, Luna. We can't wait to share you with all of our new friends.
Yay. Okay, let's do the damn thing. So today we are going to be covering all 12 of the zodiac signs and a few different ways to break them down to remember them more easily. Spoiler tip, they build on our previous episodes. So we want to make sure that this repetition is really working. The repetition is the mother of skill. And let's get into it. So my first thing that I want to do is I want to put out there a few different ways, a few different orders that you can think of and chunk the signs to remember them. So first of all, if you can't rattle them off from beginning to end yet, that's okay. It took me a while to get there too. But Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces. That's it. That's all 12. Class over, bell rings. And that is the spring to winter. And then let's rinse and repeat. And we're not going to go any slower than that just yet because we're going to break each one down today, right? But that is the order, and that is one way, certainly, that is beneficial to know, and I would recommend. However, when you're still trying to figure it out, I would say that by mode and by element are the easier ways to memorize. So Maggie's got up on the screen here the 4 cardinal, if you remember from last week's class, the 4 cardinal signs. And remember, I said when we think modes, we think seasons. So as you're sort of playing with that and trying to grasp that in your mind, just remember that if we're looking at seasons and there are 4 seasons, then there should be one of each element when we're looking at each modality. So this modality is, and remember, modality and mode, same thing. This is cardinal because we've got Aries, and it's listed here in red as fire. We move in, it starts the spring season, then we move into Cancer. Blue, water, starts the summer. Libra, using purple to represent air, and that's our cardinal fall sign, starts the fall season. And then we've got our earth cardinal sign, Capricorn, which starts the winter season. Now, what you're actually seeing on the screen here is, or are, part of those supplementary study materials that we have created for the course. So you are going to get this set of flashcards that you can print at your printer at home, or they actually align with perforated paper that you can get to print, which we're super stoked on because who doesn't love flashcards? You can even maybe laminate them when you're done. Okay.
Oh.
So this is by mode, your cardinal signs. I'm not going to list every single thing for all, but let's scroll down to the next. Then we'll move on to our fixed signs. We have fixed earth and Taurus. We have fixed fire is Leo, and fixed water is Scorpio, and fixed air is Aquarius. So here's a great way to, okay, now I've gotten through 8 of my signs. Let's see if we can get through all of them. We pop down to our mutable signs, and you've got your mutable air in Gemini, mutable earth in Virgo, mutable fire in Sagittarius, and mutable water in Pisces. So those are all of our modes. Now we have them broken down like that there on those flashcards, so we can't show you the same thing as elements, but as we go through, the third way that I would recommend, and honestly, this is probably the easiest way because the elements are so fire, air, earth, water, we remember those more easily perhaps than cardinal, fixed, mutable if you're just learning. And there's only 3 signs per each of those, so it's a little bit easier to remember, unless the seasonal thing really hit for you, then that's great too. But we've got our fire element, Aries, Leo, Sagittarius. Maggie, what's our earth element?
You've got Taurus, Virgo, Capricorn.
Our air element?
Gemini, Libra, Aquarius.
I'm putting her on the spot. I did not tell her I was going to quiz her. And our water element?
We have Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces.
Woo! Maggie got an A. We're not grading any of you. But amazing. So there are just some ways. Now you've heard all of the words and all the terms, and most of us, right? When I started the episode with what's your sign? Everybody answers with their sun sign. That's what the horoscopes in Cosmopolitan and whatever were showing us and growing up. And now we are getting a little bit more into the nitty gritty and the real archetypal meanings of these signs. So let's ground into that. And this is going to flow in a very organized way. Each of the signs we're going to go through, and we're going to share the same information for you so you can kind of really hear, oh, okay, I see how these build on each other. And I'm just feeling called right now to make a reminder of there are so many different ways to use astrology and practice. And I always like to tell people, especially when I'm starting a reading, and especially if people have done multiple readings before, or even just one reading before, because each astrologer is very different. Maggie and I are obviously very aligned in the way that we practice. And I always like to say that I practice a mix of psychological and evolutionary astrology. And I think Maggie would agree that we're on the same path there. And so when we're speaking to the zodiac signs, remember in our very first episode, we talked about the planet is the what, and the sign is the how. So this is how we present. So if we think psychologically, that's going to be how you talk, how you act, how you love, how you emote, all these, how you act in this human body is what the how that we're looking at is, depending on which planet we're looking at, being the what, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. But that's the more psychological. How do you behave in this human body? The evolutionary aspect is looking at the soul part of you, because at the end of the day, we are energy, we are soul inside of this body. And the idea is that we came here to experience a certain life. My soul, Maggie's soul, your soul, everybody's soul came here for this experience. And whether you subscribe to the idea that we're miracles because the odds of us arriving here were 1 in trillion, whatever. I don't know. I don't have those things memorized. But whenever people say things like that, I'm always like, ooh, that feels so special. Because it does feel special. Or when I listen to Stephen Forrest jokingly say, when you chose to jump off the cosmic diving board, right? When your soul chose to come here at the exact moment it did, it chose the chart. it chose the lessons, it chose the evolutionary path. And I always get goosebumps when I talk about this side of it. That's how I knew I wanted to study more deeply the evolutionary side of things, because this is so deep. We're so much more than skin and bones. And that, I think, becomes only more and more evident as we exist in a more connected space and evolve through life, right? So I don't know. I just felt like as we go through this, yes, we're listing structured information about these things that but it's so much deeper than that. These archetypes, all of them, all 12 exist within us. That's why we understand them. That's why when you read a Leo horoscope, sometimes you're like, oh, well, I connect with that, but I'm not a Leo. This is fake. That's no one who's listening to this probably talks like that, or believes that. But anyway, is there anything you want to add to that?
It was beautiful. Thank you.
Thanks so much. I forgot that I wanted to say one more thing right before we hit record. I was like, what does Zodiac mean? I realized I don't think I've ever looked that up. So I did. And then I freaked out because it's so cute. All right. I'm going to try to pronounce Greek words and it's going to be embarrassing. And then I'm going to get my Greek friend, I'm going to get Eurosmos to come on and absolutely eviscerate me. Anyway, the word zodiac originates from the ancient Greek zodiakos kyklos, meaning circle of little animals. I'm obsessed with this right now.
Say it again. Your voice went up so high.
The first time that's happened to me. That's a Maggie. It's a Maggie doing.
So proud.
Okay, so happy. It means circle of little animals. I'm not even going to I'm not cutting that out. That's staying. So how cute is that? This phrase stems from zoidion, the diminutive of zoon, which means animal, reflecting the 12 signs in the celestial belt, most of which are represented by animals or mythological hybrids. You guys, circle of little animals, stay with me here. We're talking heather gray, crew neck sweater, maybe a sage option as well. And there's some sort of circle. It says circle of little animals in this really cute text, and all the little glyphs are there. Are we wearing it? We're wearing it, right? Already?
Every single day. Every single,
I live in this sweater. I'm really excited about this. Anyhow, with that said, let's jump in. So I'm gonna start us off because I am an Aries and that is what I do. So we are starting with Aries, March 21st to April 19th. This is the ram. The symbol is the ram. And the ram, what does it do? It's got those gnarly horns on its head and it charges forward, and you better get out of its way or else it's just going to bowl you over. Okay. The ram and Aries are related to the first house. So it is the first sign. And in my mind, I have learned over time to just think Aries 1. Each sign, I think of the number, because that starts to be really helpful when you look at a chart and all of a sudden you're trying to figure something out quick. So just throwing that little tip out there. Each of the zodiac signs has a statement. It says, I something, that's meant to help you sort of get the idea of that sign. And Aries says, I am. It is our fire sign, our cardinal sign for the springtime, the spring season. Its planetary rulership is Mars, god of war. Its body rulership is the head, the brain, the skull, eyes, pituitary gland, and adrenals. And at some point, we'll do an even more focused series on medical astrology for sure. But you really get a lot of information from our first 50 because we had our third co-host at that time, Lisa, who's an herbalist and knows a lot about that stuff. So we talked a lot more. That stuff is fascinating to me and I don't know enough about it, but we'll get into all the body rulerships as well. The archetypes for Aries are the warrior, the implementer, and the hothead. So for all of our archetypes as we go through, we're going to be giving you 2 that are a little bit more on the like, yeah, damn, that sounds badass. And then 1 that's kind of like, and also, by the way, there's this side of it. And there are so many. These are not the only archetypes. These are just going to be some of the ones we chose and the ones that also are maybe a little bit more well-known. Keywords for Aries are courageous, brave, assertive, pioneering, impulsive, selfish, bold, and energetic. And if we look at sort of when we're talking about the evolutionary aspect of these archetypes and what they've come here to learn and how they've come to evolve, we've got a few sort of ways to think about that. So we've got from reaction to intention, impulse to courage with purpose, and the lone fighter to initiator who leads others forward. So as the resident Aries in the room, Maggie has no planets in Aries. So, I mean, she's still allowed to say whatever she wants, but I will say that the fieriness, you know, if you think about the first sign and how the zodiac builds upon itself, and this says, I am, it is that selfishness of learning how to be in your own body and just owning that and saying, me, and I have to take care of me or I can't do anything else. And also that selfishness is something that you do see, especially earlier on in children when they learn that they are their own person. It's like, excuse me, hold on. I can do what I want. And that is powerful to learn that about yourself. And so this is a very Aryan energy. It's also hard to ignore. Fire is hard to ignore anyway, but this being the cardinal fire, it's like the zodiac kicked off with a bang, right? This is really strong initiatory energy. So it can be a lot to handle. So I'll say of these evolutionary, especially the from reaction to intention, as far as where I am in my life right now, I would say is for sure an Aryan lesson to be honed and to be practiced. Mm-hmm. All of them are. But anyway, I just wanted to share that because it was on my heart. But that is Aries. And now we will move on to
Taurus. This sign is April 20th to May 20th. It is the bull. So the bull is a little bit different than the ram. It doesn't run headfirst into things. I think the bull is a little bit more cautious. It's a little bit more measured with its steps. Taurus, the bull, this earth energy, it's all associated with the second house. And the statement for this sign is I have. So going from I am to I have, this Taurus is connected with earth energy. It's connected with fixed energy. So it's the sign that holds the fort down between seasons. We already had Aries kick off the spring. Taurus is holding. It's sustaining spring. The planet that rules over Taurus is Venus. It is a Venusian planet connected with like love and money and things that feel really good and yummy. And the body parts connected with Taurus are the neck, the jaw, the mouth, the throat, the brain stem, which I didn't really think of, but it makes sense. It's like the root, the root of your consciousness, larynx, thyroid, vagus nerve, and then the vasoparasympathetic nervous system. So lots of stuff right here. It's also very connected with the vocal cords. The archetypes for Taurus include the connoisseur, the everyman, and the stubborn mule. And then some additional keywords for Taurus would be sensual, stubborn, grounded, possessive, dependable, reliable, pragmatic. And then the evolutionary kind of path of Taurus is possession to appreciation. And like Meli said, some of these starting points, possession, impulse, these are like the immature versions of the sign, brand new, haven't done any personal work, haven't done any growth, haven't done any. So this is more likely to start out with a little bit of that possessiveness. It's concerned with what I have. Then we move from indulgence to appreciation, or indulgence to embodiment and embodying that appreciation, and then attachment to stewardship of what is sacred or what is valuable to you.
Beautiful. Thanks, yes. Mags.
Yeah.
All right, from there we move into Gemini. Gemini is May 21st to June 20th. And the archetype, or the symbol, excuse me, of Gemini is the twins. So there's terrible jokes floating around out there that Gemini is one of the least liked of the zodiac signs because of their duplicitous nature. There is this ability with the twins to sort of play both sides of the coin, to show one side and then show another, right? And that can be uncomfortable in psychological situations when you're trying to figure somebody out or connect with somebody or whatever it is. The irony is that Gemini loves to connect. But here's what's up with the rest of the Gemini archetype. Gemini rules the third house, is the third sign. And it says, I think, loves to think. It is our first air sign. It's mutable and it's the spring. So it's the mutable are always taking us from one season to another. This is moving us from spring into summer. The planetary rulership here is Mercury. Mercury is also loves to think, very mind-oriented things. We're seeing a trend here, of course. The body rulership for Gemini is chest, lungs, respiratory tract, and nervous system. You see nervous system come up quite a bit in a few different of these signs because the nervous system's kind of important and kind of takes up like a lot of us. The archetypes are the flirt, one of my faves, the storyteller, another fave, and the trickster. There's this kind of manipulative streak in the Gemini, this sort of one side versus the other. You don't only find it here, but with that trickster energy, there's also there's wit. There's this like, I might be a little smarter than you. Let me see if I can mess with you. I have to just share, I shared this, I think, in our very first Gemini episode too, but my brother is a Gemini sun, and I used to be like super irked by some of his tendencies. And as I started to learn more about the Zodiac, I was like, oh, this is so Gemini of him. And then when I found out I had 3 planets in Gemini, I was like, okay, wait, is this that whole like other people are a mirror for you thing? What's going on here? But the storyteller, the trickster, and the flirt, like those embody his essence, which is his sun so much more. And he has this, he doesn't do it as much anymore, but growing up especially, he would tell these lavish stories, these ridiculous stories that I like, he's got the whole room enraptured. They're like, wow, this is like amazing. And I'm like sitting there, like I was there when that happened and it wasn't that grandiose. Like he was never lying for malicious reasons. He was just lying to tell a better story. He was just embellishing the truth. This is very Gemini. Later in my life, after when I was a young adult, I moved out of my house. And one of my first new friends I met when I moved down here in Florida, same exact birthday as my brother, did the exact same thing. So he starts telling stories and I'm like, oh my God, is this my brother? And then legit, when I learned he had the same birthday, I was like, oh my God. So for me, that's such a strong way of remembering what this storyteller kind of trickster, charming energy might feel like. Some keywords are intellectual, communicative, connector, inquisitive, curious, loves to know why, how, etc. And some of the evolutionary paths for Gemini: distraction to connection, information to meaning, and duality to integration. So you'll notice with a lot of these evolutionary ones, if you just pause to listen to them, because I don't love to use lower vibration, higher vibration. That's not my favorite term. We don't always want to vibrate higher, but we do want to vibrate, as our friend Eileen McCusick would say, we do want to vibrate in more coherence. So distraction would be this less intentional way of being, whereas taking whatever it's we're distracted by and making coherence out of the information that we have, whatever it is, that brings in more space for connection, meaning. So I think overall you could actually take the evolutionary thing that we're doing here, and it's from almost like from basic to intention, or from kind of
like
anyway,
growth. Yeah, the map of growing, maybe.
The map of growth with our circle of animals, of little animals.
Oh my God.
Okay, carry on.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so next we will move into Cancer. This sign is from June 21st until July 22nd. I don't know if we've mentioned that some years it's mildly different. Some years it will be the 20th to the 21st and vice versa. So it's always just kind of around 20th, 21st, 22nd, sometimes even on the 19th. So Cancer, June 21st to July 22nd. This symbol is the crab. What do you think of when you think of the crab? I think of this little like sea spider that's really crunchy on the outside and really gooey on the inside, and it kind of like goes side to side and not in a direct line of motion. And Cancer signs kind of do that in their own way. They'll skirt around things to protect themselves. That's that hard shell and the gooey soft inside. Cancer, the crab is connected to the fourth house. Its statement says, I feel. This is a water sign. It is a cardinal sign, and it is ruled by the moon. So this is our only water cardinal sign. This body rulership for Cancer is the stomach, and then in feminine bodies, the uterus and the breasts. So more like the sac kind of organs, I would say. Archetypes for Cancer include the mother, the guardian, and the smothering parent. We get into, you might think like the mother and smothering parent are similar. It's a different approach. When we mother, we can mother ourselves, we can mother our children, we can mother our friends. It's nurturing that shows up, that is kind of selfless. It is truly just oriented towards tending to your roots of your needs, your emotional needs, your like inner home. And then the smothering parent is when we get we're overly protective. We're the what is it? I call it a snowplow parent that just like clears the path for their children, so there's no obstacles, no harm. That might seem kind and caring, but it can be unbeneficial, unhelpful. So wide, just like all the other ones, kind of a wide range of different archetypes. Keywords, I've mentioned some already. We've got defensiveness, protectiveness, vulnerability, nurturing, intuitive, and then a little bit moody. With Cancer ruling the moon, what does the moon do? It changes shape every single day. What does our emotional landscape do? Probably changes shape almost every day, you know? And then last but not least, we have the evolution. We go from defensiveness to emotional intelligence here. So being triggered by something, if we're immature, if we're new at it, we might get reactive and defensive. But once we've grown and put a little bit of effort into ourselves, then that becomes emotional intelligence, where we can hold compassion for the person that has touched our wound. Withdrawal to nurturing others. So kind of isolating, keeping the unsafe, dangerous, unpredictable people at bay, flipping that to just like, how can I be of service? How can I help? How can I care for you? And then sensitivity to intuitive strength. And I know that we've said the sign is connected with the mother and kind of this more nurturing energy. That doesn't mean that men can't. There are plenty of men with Cancer in their charts. All men have Cancer in their charts. And this might seem like a silly point to make. But I have two Cancerian men that come to mind, one of my massage clients and one of my grandpas. And they make me feel so cared for in such a unique way. My grandpa remembers, both of these men actually remember everything that I have ever told them. My grandpa has had a stroke, so his mind and his mouth don't always connect, but he is able to draw back this information somehow. And it makes me feel so cared for. It's remarkable. It's amazing. What's next?
That's so beautiful. I have one friend I think of who has also like blue eyes like yours, like that you can just like totally get lost in, who's a Cancer sun. And I feel like his intuition is so strong. And yeah, I always think of him as a good representation. Also, there's that immediate nurturance that I want to make sure you're seen and heard. Yeah, I totally agree with that.
I feel so good.
Yes. All right. So now we're on to Leo, July 23rd to August 22nd. and the symbol for Leo is the lion. The lion is very proud. The lion stands tall, and when a lion walks, like, you know, when you watch like it doesn't even have to be in slow-mo, but you watch a lion walk and like you can see like it's his muscles and like you're yeah. Sometimes I watch one of my cats in particular, Sophie, when she walks through the house. I'm like, you're an ape, you're a tiny apex predator, and you're in my home. That's like lion energy right there, right? And they're confident and unapologetic and proud. Leo rules the fifth house. It is the fifth sign. And the statement for Leo is I will or I create. There's two there. It's just too proud, too many good options to just have one. Leo is one of our fire signs, a fixed sign in the summer, and ruled by the sun, which is very appropriate for, again, our northern hemisphere, summer at least. The body rulership is the heart, the circulatory system, the major arteries, and the thoracic spine. The archetypes are the performer, the creator, and the tyrant. Because what happens when you're too proud and your ego gets a little bit too much of you? Well, then you get a little tyrannical, right? Or the monarch is another fun word. Keywords, I've already mentioned quite a few, but proud, charming, creative, egotistical, expressive, confident. Evolution, we go from ego to authenticity, attention seeking to creative self-expression, and performance to embodied confidence. So much of this I actually like those first three words, if I just read those in order: ego, attention seeking, and performance. Very often, I've heard this actually from a lot of Leos who say, I don't feel like a Leo because I'm not a performer. I don't like being on stage. I don't, Well, hate to break it to you, but everybody has an ego. And at some point, that ego controls us to a certain extent that we need to kind of get hold of and get a little bit more clear on who we really are. And that's that ego to authenticity. Am I just being swept away by these grandiose ideas that I have, or what it is I'm trying to create without purpose, or what is my authentic kind of purpose, right? And then the attention seeking piece, I always talk about this a lot with Leo. I feel is really important because, especially I think in our younger age and in our societies and cultures, we're often kind of told to not take up too much space in a lot of different ways and not seek recognition, and almost like recognition is a bad thing. And I think that most people would venture to say, nah, I don't need recognition, I'm good. And no, actually, especially if you have strong Leo, you need that recognition. Stephen Forrest's example for Leo that I really like, it's easy to remember, is he's like, imagine a kid swinging on a swing set and saying, hey, daddy, look at me, mommy, daddy, look at me. It's just that desire to be seen. And it does, doing anything. And that's also, Leo represents childlike fun and joy. And so that vision of that kid is like really the Leo archetype kind of wrapped up with a bow. And then, yeah, that performance to embodied confidence. It's not just about performing, though. Speaking of getting recognition, when the rock star strums his guitar and everybody goes wild and everybody sings along to the song, that's, are you kidding me? That is like the peak experience of fuel for a Leo, or, really, I mean, it would feel good for, I think, a lot of different people, not only for Leos, but that's that idea. That's that feeling that I'm talking about. But then to be able to step on that stage and do that thing, that's that embodied confidence. That's Leo in its true coherent state, right? So that is Leo for you.
Love that. All right, next we have Virgo. This is August 23rd through September 22nd. The sign for Virgo is the Virgin. I have heard in my astrology training with Deborah Silverman, she likened this energy to Mother Mary. I think that's what the Virgin is referring to, but just being of service, that kind of giving your life over to something bigger than yourself kind of energy is that pureness that is associated with that symbology. Virgo rules the sixth house. It is the sixth sign of the zodiac. And Virgo says, I analyze. This is a mutable earth sign. It is bridging the gap between summer and fall. And this is another sign that is ruled by Mercury. So it's a mercurial, really thought-oriented, organizational, like details-oriented of a sign. The parts of the body that Virgo is responsible for are the intestines, especially the small intestines and the duodenum, which is one of the beginning parts of the small intestines. And this really helps me to visualize Virgo's energy, because if you think about what the small intestines does for your body, it takes the food and it like redirects all of the little fine materials to different spots within your body. We're going to send this to the liver and this to the blood and this to the brain. And that is the level of organization and discernment that you want. Could you imagine if you had to be the one responsible for mentally dictating? Where I'm so glad Virgo exists. I'm so glad our intestines exist. So we can see a lot of those qualities within the sign itself, that discernment. Get into keywords in a moment. The archetypes first: the analyst, the sage, and the critic. And again, all of those kind of point to this very discerning, organized, analytical, practical. Particular is another really good word for Virgo energy. Perfectionistic and the helper. Some of the evolutionary developments of Virgo will be perfectionism to devotion. So doing the thing for the purpose of the thing versus the perfection of the thing. Criticism to discernment, and control to service. A lot of different this Virgo heavy mercurial people that I will speak to almost look out of through their eyes at the world through the lens of the critic. That's when we get really good at discerning, when we get really good at being analytical and thinking critically, that critic can become the loudest thing, and we can forget that we don't need to break everything down. Not everything needs to be digested intestines. So chill it out a little bit, would you?
It's a really good reminder. And I want to just add, because this one really helped me with Virgo and the perfectionist aspect of it, similar to how I joked with Gemini. There are some signs that I think get a bad rap, and Virgo is one of them for sure that does too, because of that nitpickiness and that perfectionism. And something, again, that Stephen Forrest says that I really like is that the reason for that perfectionism is that Virgo has this gift to look far ahead and say, okay, well, the goal is over there. That's what I'm trying to achieve or get to. And I see this whole gap in between. I see all this space, and I can see every single step that I need to take to get to that goal. And I want to do it right. And I want to do it efficiently. And so it slots everything in. And that's because it sees what's possible. That's it trying to get to that perfection, if you will. I also just want to make sure that we mentioned that it was Earth, just because I feel like I heard you go straight to mutable, just to cover the bases, just in case.
Thank you.
All righty. On to Libra. Libra is September 23rd to October 22nd. And the symbol for Libra is the scales. I think I actually said this in our first episode from this series too. I say it all the time. It's the only symbol that is not alive. It is not one of the 12 little animals. Okay. I don't know what we're going to do about that. We'll have to still just put a little scale. Maybe we'll put 2 animals on the scale. Okay. I have to stop putting this idea out there in case somebody else tries to steal it from me. All right. The scales, 7th house. So we've now made it halfway through. We're toppled over to the top of the horizon line. We're over in the second half of the zodiac wheel now. And Libra says, I balance. A fun fact that was shared with me by my friend Ashley, an astrologer who we will have on at some point. She told me that, I never fact checked this, so if you were lying, Ashley, what the heck? But apparently Libra was the last sign to join the zodiac. And if you actually look at the constellations, Libra, Virgo, Scorpio, which sit on either side, they share more of the sky than any other constellations do. So since Virgo and Scorpio were already closer together, it was like Libra came in to help balance those energies, two very strong energies in their own, unique ways. I thought that was kind of a fun way to remember too what that balancing, the purpose for that balancing was. So Libra is our cardinal air sign, and I had to think for a second, she kicks off the fall season. It kicks off the fall season, actually. Ruled by Venus, though, so there is that feminine energy. And the body rulership is kidneys, lower back. What is this word? Genitourinary?
Genitourinary.
Genitourinary. Okay, there should be a hyphen between genito and urinary. I've decided. Okay, genitourinary tract. What is genito? Why is it not just the urinary tract?
I don't know. That's what the Greeks said.
Okay. All right. I believe the Greeks. The lumbar spine, as well as hair, skin, and aesthetic parts of the body, right? Aesthetic is a big word for Venus. And this is the second of the signs that Venus rules. And with Taurus, where he talked about sensuality and voice, for example, those are sort of the Venusian expressions there. Money has to do with it too. But here, where we're thinking more, again, that feminine kind of vibe, we're looking at more of the aesthetics. Anyway, that's not hard and fast. Those can cross over. But archetypes are the diplomat, the lover. I always say Libras love. Sounds corny, but it's true. Libras love. And the people pleaser. Keywords that are related to Libra are diplomatic, harmonious, mediator, judgmental, others oriented, and aesthetical, if we haven't said aesthetic enough yet. Yeah, something else, just the lover. Beyond that, lover equals relationship, but it's partnership. There's a lot of connection relation with Libra. All right, the evolutionary paths for Libra are people pleasing to fairness. If I see somebody with a lot of Libra energy, or even if I see one placement, if it's strong enough, I know I can say something about there being this kind of doormat energy, this people pleasing energy. And we start to look at the house it's in and all that, we can kind of see where does that probably show up in your life. And that is always a hard yes nod from that Libran energy. It's just, you have this tendency because you want harmony so much, you want peace so much. And the cardinality gives you such a high capacity, such a large, I don't know, just ability to hold space that you end up forgetting about yourself, people pleasing until the cows come home, and then being like, how did I end up flattened as a doormat? So, all right. Indecision to wise judgment. Love that, right? Because if you're balancing scales, like you can get into this indecisive thing too and overthink and really getting into using your refined judgment skills. And avoiding conflict to creating harmony through truth. Yeah, because there is this desire to avoid conflict for sure. But really what you're here to ultimately do is create harmony. And of course, you better be doing that shit through truth. Hello.
Yeah, or else it's like building a house on sand. And why would you do that?
So ridiculous.
Oh, look at what we're at next. Well. Let me put my villain hat on. Next, we are going to talk about Scorpio. This sign is from October 23rd to November 21st. The symbol, the animal that goes along with this sign is the scorpion, of course.
That's
exactly.
There's no other sound I could make for the tail.
I think that it's like snakes and phoenixes are also associated with this sign. It's a shedding process. A lot of those creatures will shed, like snakes shed their skin, phoenixes die and rise again, scorpions probably shed their skin. So get a sense of just the themes of the sign just through the symbol alone. The Scorpio rules the 8th house, and it says, I desire. Scorpio is the fixed water sign. It is the sign that sustains the fall, and it is ruled by Pluto. Initially, before Pluto was discovered, this sign was ruled by Mars. So that's where some of the spice comes from. I've said before that Scorpio is kind of like water with cayenne pepper in it. Just a little bit of heat, a little bit of kick to it. The body parts associated with Scorpio are the eliminative organs like the colon, the rectum, and the bladder, as well as the sexual or reproductive organs. So the things that make you create life and get rid of the waste that you no longer need. This is connected to the archetypes of the alchemist, the psychologist, and the manipulator. And those things kind of all go together, just like all of these archetypes. The alchemists were known for taking one thing, adding some potions and adding a little bit of stardust and doing this, and then it magically transmutes into something else. So Scorpio is kind of good at that. Sometimes they do it for good and sometimes they do it for evil. We can go any direction we want with that. Keywords connected to Scorpio would be intense, extreme, deep, passionate, transformative, and private. That's kind of a big one. Last but not least, the evolution of this sign goes from control to trust, and then from fear of loss of acceptance to change, just being okay with change, letting change happen. A lot of times the fixed signs are really resistant. They want to sustain so badly that change is such a threat that like they just grip harder and harder and harder. So when a Scorpio is evolved, they can trust acceptance and embrace the change. Destruction to transformation and rebirth. I've like in every astrology book I've ever had, Scorpio has a little blurb about how they're more inclined to self-implode and just like let things build up, let things get so intense, so extreme, so kind of like high energy that they'll just implode on themselves and you might not see them for a while.
So take that transformation and be reborn with it. Don't just implode. Come back. Be a phoenix. Rise from the ashes. Yes.
Exactly. I love that. I've never done that ever.
No, never have you disappeared. That's not a thing. No. Never have you imploded. None of those things have occurred. No. All right. On to Sagittarius, November 22nd to December 21st. The symbol is the archer. I feel like we really hit this one home, I think, in the last episode or the first one. We got really excited. Probably the first one because we were talking Sag rising. But yeah, the archetype of the archer, I love to imagine an archer pulling the bow, pulling the arrow back. And I always imagine them in this vast expanse of a desert. And they just let that go. And it's like, where is that going to fall? And in that moment of like where you just have, it's like, that feeling right there. Hold on to that for a moment. That vastness, that optimism, that expansion, just anything is possible. And it's kind of adventurous to just be throwing, I don't know, you could kill somebody. Like you don't even know what you're doing. I don't know. Anyway, so that's the archer. Maggie likes to think of a stallion running free with their hair blowing in the wind, which by the way, I actually used that example in a reading a few days ago. And as soon as I said it, the woman was like, oh my gosh, you just unlocked this reminder of a dream that I used to have of being like on the horse or being the horse. I don't remember exactly, but she was so touched by that. I was like, I'm going to share that with Maggie. I forgot to share that.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Wow.
Because she did not have any dreams about being an archer in the desert, which, I mean, come on. Don't people just dream about that? The Sagittarius rules the 9th house. It is the 9th sign. And it says, I see or I perceive. A little bit deeper than just I see. I see beyond my eyeballs, I perceive. Fire, this is a fire sign and is our mutable fire sign, which is moving us from the fall into the winter. It is ruled by Jupiter. The body rulership is the locomotor apparatus. Hips, loins, thighs, and butt, along with the liver. Some important pieces of the body. Archetypes are the philosopher, the explorer, and the know-it-all. I think that know-it-all also makes you a good teacher sometimes. 'Cause if you know stuff, you do want to disseminate that. Another word that is related is wisdom or wise. And so it's knowing how to use that wisdom, right? Which will come in this evolutionary path in a moment. So let me not get ahead of myself. Some other keywords are optimistic, enthusiastic, adventurous, lucky. I would say too is something that there's also sort of just this like, I don't know, this je ne sais quoi about Sagittarius, this like magical kind of quality.
Oh, Deborah Silverman always said that if she could have picked her rising sign, she would pick, if she could pick any rising sign, she would pick Sag rising.
I love that. What is her rising?
I think it's Taurus, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I don't think I would have picked Taurus, but that's not surprising. I have too much fire. Let's just keep it that way. All right. So the evolutionary paths for Sagittarius are opinion to wisdom, right? So instead of that know-it-all energy, can you take that wisdom and use it in a way that is hopefully more of that teaching aspect? It's part of the gift. Wandering to a purposeful quest. Wandering to a purposeful. Sometimes you are meant to just wander, but you can get lost in the wandering. A purposeful quest is much more enjoyable, I think, ultimately. If you haven't read the book The Alchemist, I love that book so much. It's a very Sagittarian book, I think. And then evolutionary path number 3, rather, bluntness to truth spoken with meaning. Because our fire signs can certainly come across as blunt. That's no question. I don't think we put direct as an Aries keyword, but we certainly should have directness. Regardless, yes. Bluntness to truth spoken with meaning. That's great. Okay, Amen. Cool. That was Sag. On to
Capricorn, one of our favorites. We had to learn to love it, but we sure do. This is from December 22nd to January 19th. The symbol associated with Capricorn is the sea goat, a mythical creature with the body of a fish and the head of a goat. And this animal is so magical because it can traverse land and sea with the greatest of ease. And that's what makes Capricorn so dang durable. This is the 10th sign of the zodiac and therefore associated with the 10th house. And it says things like, I use. Capricorn is a cardinal earth sign. So it is very connected with what is tangible, what is practical, what is measurable and quantifiable. So it makes sense that it would use tools and, use one resource to accomplish this task. And, it's practical. So that makes sense. For the statement, its ruling planet is Saturn. And both Capricorn and Saturn can be known for kind of like their coldness. So there's just such a practicality to both. Usually warmth and practicality don't always fall into the same category. The body rulership for Capricorn includes the knees, the bones, the joints, the skeletal system, just in general as a whole, and then some of them, the structural connective tissues. So that would be like your tendons, your ligaments, some of the things that are harder. Because all of these things, Capricorn, Saturn, some of these qualities of, orderly, disciplined, practical, tangible, all of that is hard. There's like boundaries to it because it's more tangible. Archetypes that go with Capricorn would be the elder, the entrepreneur, and the pessimist. Sometimes when you've lived really long and you've seen how sideways things can go, you just get a little bit negative. It's because you're so overly practical that you forget that there's whimsy. You forget that there's magic. So sometimes in our pursuit of practicality, we can become a little bit pessimistic. Other keywords connected with Capricorn: grounded, serious, cold, mentor. I think of like principal, like the principal of the school, your father figure, that kind of like authoritative, masculine energy that teaches you things such as responsibility and consequence would all fall into this bucket in the sky. The evolutionary path is ambition to mastery. So sometimes when we're ambitious, we get a little bit desperate because we want it so badly. When we get into that mastery, I think that there's just more intention that comes along with that. Control to responsibility and stewardship. So sometimes responsibility, control, that can feel like obligation, or we're so attached to our expectations that we get controlling as a result. Move away from that control, that drive, to more honor, like respect with your stewardship. And then fear to discipline, using that fear of not being good enough or not meeting expectations, not measuring up to authority, whatever the fear is, and using that as inspiration to become more disciplined and to come into that masterful kind of approach to the thing. So,
yeah. Beautifully said. I feel
you.
like we have really, really learned to embody and love on the Capricorn energy. I feel like good for us.
Good for us.
All right. Aquarius, January 20th to February 18th. And Aquarius is the water bearer. I actually do not remember all the reasons why Aquarius is the water bearer at this particular moment, because it does confuse people. Why is it a water bearer if it's an air sign? Do you remember? Because at this moment,
zany. It's zany and eclectic. The water that the maiden is pouring is actually the ether. Everything sits. Yeah.
Okay. As Maggie said, that. The 11th house is what Aquarius rules. And it says, I know. I know. So our air signs love to think. And obviously, this isn't the only sign that knows anything. But when we get to this point, there's this sort of fixed air energy. By the way, that's what it is, our fixed air sign. And it sits in the winter. And the winter's cold. It's got to commit. And so I know. Uranus is Aquarius's ruler. The body rulership is the shins, the calves, the ankles, the peripheral vascular system, the sympathetic nervous system. The archetypes are the genius, the humanitarian, and the anarchist. The anarchist can also be kind of seen as the rebel, right? The genius also has those innovator vibes. This was one that was kind of tough to just cut it down to 3 archetypes. But those are all really important. You know, the 11th house, as you'll learn in our upcoming class on houses, is about community and friends. And so the humanitarian, I think, is one that can often sort of be forgotten when it comes to Aquarius, especially because Aquarius being sort of the anarchist, the wanting to be outside the box. And you use the description, I think, in our last episode of like Belle's dad in Beauty and the Beast, this person who's like so brilliant, but people don't really understand, so they get shunned. And there's also this desire to be unique. There's this, I know I'm different and I'm okay with that comes along with Aquarius. And though at the same time, it's about being individual, being your own self, that Aquarian nature, but in community, because we're always in community. We're meant to be in tribe. We have friends, all that. So it's an interesting paradox that this one can sometimes bring into the picture. Keywords: visionary, innovative, the wrong emphasis on the wrong syllable. I don't remember what that's from, but sometimes I just feel like I have to say it. Okay, I'm just kidding. I know how to say it. It's innovative. I'm not British. Intellectual, brilliant, different, I think unique, individual. These are all, coloring outside the lines. This is all very Aquarian. The evolutionary paths for Aquarius are rebel without a cause to innovation, right? And even more simply, rebel without a cause to rebel with a cause. If you can do that, however the hell you get there, then nice. Detachment to humanitarianism. Actually, another keyword that I do often like to use is aloof or detached, or other good ones. So detachment to humanitarianism. Can you not get lost in that sort of individuated space where you're sort of like in a silo or off on your own, to the bigger picture, what's possible when you choose to do for the collective.
Mm.
And outsider to visionary leader. Yeah, bring your weirdness forward, let your freak flag fly, whatever, let your people find you, and then go forth and make a difference.
Mm.
Yeah. There's also like the revolutionary energy is a big word too. I feel so maybe because Aquarius has just been so in the forefront since Pluto entered not that long ago that I feel like whenever I'm like, oh, and this and this and this, one of those signs that kind of gets me going. But anyway, that's Aquarius, our second to last sign, which leaves us at
Pisces. Woohoo! The final sign of the zodiac. This sign covers February 19th through March 20th. The symbol is the two fish, and it's the two fish that are like swimming in opposite directions or kind of in a circle. And that I think it just paints a picture of the mutability of Pisces really well. There's our mutable water sign. So it's finishing up winter season, moving into spring. And this sign also says, I believe. It is the 12th sign of the zodiac and therefore connected with the 12th house. And its ruler, its planetary ruler is Neptune. Before Neptune was discovered, Jupiter was its ruler. It's got the inflationary kind of energy to it. Body rulership connected with Pisces would be the feet, the lymphatic system, and the fascia. And I just think that's interesting because so much is stored in our fascia, so much is stored in our bodies in general. There's so many great books on it. One, of course, The Body Keeps the Score. I don't know who wrote that, but just how your body is a collection of your entire history. It's like a map of your blueprint of all the steps you've walked, of all the thoughts you've thought, of everything that has like passed through you some way, whether it's in your environment or something that's not tangible. And this is the part of our body. Our body also it stores all of that stuff. So we have trauma that's stored in our fascia. Our lymphatic system is what cleans our body out. It's what removes the waste. It gets those invisible things that we don't need anymore out. And Pisces does a lot of that as well. We've connected it to the junk drawer. It's the last sign of the zodiac. So it has a little bit of everything before it within it. Some of the archetypes that are connected with Pisces would be the dreamer, the creative, and the escapist. Those boundaries get blurry. We get, just sensitive to everything that's around us, from our laundry detergent to the 5G to other EMFs and frequencies. And those just, they permeate us in some way, shape, or form. Some more keywords that we can connect with Pisces would be spiritual, empathetic, psychic, connected fluid is a really good one, and consciousness. Because it is the fish, I do often kind of connect Pisces energy with Christ consciousness, just because Jesus had the symbol of the fish, like he's associated with that according to lots of Christians. And then the golden rule, the thing that he always talked about was treating others the way you want to be treated. This is a very Piscean kind of a theme. It's considerate, it's compassionate, it's empathetic, it's understanding that we're all just people here, traumatized and creative, all trying to figure it out. Evolutionary path of Pisces is from escape to surrender. So a lot of times when we choose to escape, we're avoiding something that's uncomfortable. When we escape, we just brush that under the rug. There's so many ways to escape. We can use our phone. We can use a substance. We can use positivity, only ever focusing on the good thing. That is a form of escaping reality as well. So an evolved version of this would be to just surrender. And that's a really hard to think about, to do, because it's in that moment where you want to get away from it the very most. So sounds simple. Confusion to intuition, feeling like, I don't know, I just feel affected by everything, and moving into more of a like, okay, I'm regulated, I'm in my body. So these signals, these messages are actually telling me something instead of just being this chaotic, confusing hodgepodge. And lastly, from martyrdom to compassion / awareness for others. So we're not self-sacrificing in order to be the hero or in order to make sure that everything feels good. We are being compassionate and aware. And sometimes when we are compassionate and aware, we have to hold a boundary that's uncomfortable and it might feel unkind, but it's actually the kindest thing that can be done.
Wow.
That's a wrap.
Drop the mic, Mag. That was awesome. Well, that felt really great. Congratulations on making it through class number 4, episode number 4. That's exciting. Halfway through the content, and hopefully a lot of this repetition and a lot of these familiar words and terms are really starting to take hold. If you're doing the work and practicing the things, that will be the case. And if you're hanging out with us, then you're laughing a lot more in your life, I think. So that's exciting. Now, in the meantime, while we are getting ready to give you all of the deets here very, very soon, sign up for the wait list. That is in the show notes. And I realize that as we're saying that, that's relevant to right now, but at some point somebody will be listening to this and it's no longer a wait list. The good news is that, hey, we were smart enough to think about that. We're using the same backslash as the techie people say, meaning that whenever you click on that thing, eventually you're still going to be reading about celestial essentials. Go us. I'm very proud of us for that. I feel like we've really been thinking this thing through.
Girl, that's all you, because I had no idea what you're trying to do when you set that up. I was like, question mark.
Do you get it now?
I do.
Okay, good. Great. Well, on behalf of us and our 12 little circle of animals, what is it again? The circle of little animals. Yeah, our circle of little animals. We're really grateful for you all. Thank you for being here. Hope you learned something amazing today. Our circle of little animals and us also have to thank our sponsor, Luna, one more time. I wanted to say earlier, but I thought, you know what, I'll just throw this in at the end, that I was thinking a lot yesterday around just how aligned we are. And it's no mistake that we found ourselves working alongside and partnering with Luna, and why we are so grateful to them, because they're sort of they've got a lot of little kind of taglines that share what they're all about. But one of their main ones that is so resonant to us is astrology is the story of your life and Luna helps you live it. Oh. So if you really understand that as above, so below, these cosmos are within us, all these archetypes, all these little animals are just running around in there, and you represent all of this, then the question is just, how do you interpret the language that's being spoken? And all of that comes in story. We love telling stories. We love hearing stories, some of us more than others, but something to consider. And I think something that's just really cool about Luna. So thank you, Luna. We love you.
Thank you.
And besides that, if you're not going to take the course with us, actually, I will mention too, though, that we always have a link in the show notes with a code for you to get a discount. So you can use Luna all on your own. You're welcome to do that as well. But anyway, we will be back next class. And in next class, you will be learning about the houses. So we are getting through all of the essentials as we've promised. And then we're going to start really getting into some synthesis, which is where it's going to get particularly interesting. I mean, it's already really interesting, but even more so, it's going to start to get crazy. Get ready. All right, we're going now. I hope you just have the most wonderful day, whatever you're up to. Okay, bye-bye. Until next time. Stay curious. Oh, sometimes you know.
I'm melted.
I am dancing with a circle of little animals this entire time. That's where I've been.
Oh my God.